welcome back, everybody. This is Jeff with Junior Hockey Advisor. Hour 3 of our marathon, 6 sessions on Sunday night. And I don't know why I'm using a styrofoam cup because this is from our coffee maker here. But this is my 3rd cup already. I hope that I don't start doing this by the time the final show comes up or the final live stream comes up. Thank you for tuning in. Please tell me in the comments who's on, who's watching, where you're at, and if this is your first session, say, hey, first session from Michigan. If this is your second one today, let me know. If there's anybody out there that's actually been on and this is your 3rd one in a row with me, get a freaking life. I'm kidding. Hopefully you're getting something out of this. So please let me know in the comments where you're at, where you're from. Once again, I'm Jeff Colson. I am the Junior Hockey Advisor. I do not work as an advisor. The brand is Junior Hockey Advisor because we talk about all paths lead to junior hockey. Doesn't matter what level you're playing at, unless you're a first-round draft pick in the NHL. That's the only guy that bypasses junior hockey. The rest of the world it works through junior hockey. So we talk about what it takes to move up through from 14 to 16 to 18 to junior hockey, and then what it takes to get from junior hockey to college hockey at all levels. Next hour, after this hour, we're going to talk about the 18 to prep dilemma. Actually, we're going to change that a little bit. We're going to talk about the high school age player to prep, which direction to go. And we're going to try to clarify some things. We're going to take questions on that. So that's the session we're in right now. We're going to talk about the advantages of going to or not going to prep hockey, and we're gonna talk about the whole model and make sure that everybody's got a clear understanding of it. Some of you are gonna have some very detailed questions. I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to your questions, and we'll get to it. So who am I and why are we doing this? This is the point. If you were on the last session or the last 2 sessions, take your bathroom break, get your coffee, get your drink. If you're on all 3 of them, get your whiskey bottle because I don't know why you're while you're watching me for 3 hours. Hopefully, at some point, my monotone voice and looking at this face on the monitor would send you to do something else, clean the garage or something. So anyway, what do I do this for? What are we here for? We're here to educate. We're here to teach. I do have webinars. There's a ton of free content. If you're not part of our Facebook page, please like and follow both. Both use the like and the follow on our Facebook page. That's different than our Facebook discussion group. Join that too. There's great discussion there. The content on both pages is diverse. It's not always the same on the page that it's on the discussion group. You can always go to YouTube. We've got a ton of our, well over 100 videos on YouTube on all kinds of subjects related to this, and a lot of it repeats itself, but you can go on there and find great videos on how the system works, how D1 works, how D3 works, how the different junior leagues work, where players come from, where they go to, which videos you should be watching, which websites you should know. We give you a lot of information, a lot of content. That's what we do. Yes, from time to time I do take individual counseling calls, 1-hour calls that are paid calls. That's not the bread and butter. I do that because if I didn't charge for the phone calls, I'd be taking 300 calls a week. When I put a little bit of a price tag on the phone call, it's for somebody that's really in a critical situation that needs some help, and I'll jump in and help on those. The other thing I do is webinars for people in the profession. I do a series of webinars for people that are looking to move into coaching college, coaching juniors, coaching pro, and they need to be a little bit more versed on how the process works from the professional standpoint. So if that's a category you're interested in, now that I will tell you, I'll sell you on, and that's a profitable area that I will try to work for you. If you're out there in that category, DM me. I'll get you hooked up into our webinar series on that. But that's really not what we're here for. We're here to help the parents right now. We're here to help players understand the process. This conversation, by the way, a little bit more about me. Been doing this for 35 years. I'm a master certified coach. Went to the University of Michigan. A little bit of playing time there. I have an MBA in finance. I've owned junior teams. I've coached junior teams. I've been general managers of junior teams for a very long time. But I've also coached at all levels, including girls hockey. I have two kids that have gone through. My daughter went all the way through, won a national championship at the NCAA level. She's now in law school in her last year at Penn State Law after graduating from the University of Michigan. My son is still playing junior hockey right now. That's not where I hang my hat on. I hang my hat on that I've been doing this before my kids, and I'll be doing this after my kids are involved in hockey. The biggest thing I want to say about my background is I'm trying to give you information on what trends and what paths and what works, where the numbers are at. Why I think that's important is understanding the system and how the systems work and how to take advantage of the system that's already there. You're not going to change the system as one person because you don't want to play by the system and the way the system works. The system's not going to change. It is what it is. The way to ascend through hockey works pretty much primarily the same and has been that way for quite a while. Now, with that said, what's the extraordinary, what stands out in that? What's the anomaly? Talent's the anomaly. If you're a talented player, you can do a lot of things, and if you're at the very top of your talent, you choose what you want to do versus the system choosing it for you. But even so, the players, even elite players do the same thing. Where do elite players go in the U.S.? They all go to the National Development Program. From there, where do they go? They go to 1 year playing for Michigan, North Dakota, Providence, Boston College, or BU. From there, they go on and play pro hockey in the NHL or the AHL. That's the elites even have their own model. So anyway, enough of that. You know a little bit about me. You know why I'm here. You know what we're here to talk about. So this is the session for Prep in 18. Kelly, you jumped on. Yes, you're in the right spot. If you're here for anything else than the discussion about youth hockey to prep, next session after this, starting in about an hour, will be our session on girls. We'll follow that up at 6 o'clock. I got to look at my schedule here. The girls session will start at 6. At 7 o'clock, this is Eastern time, we'll be talking ACHA college club hockey, and we'll get into a discussion about that, which will be an unbelievable discussion. Even if you're not interested in college club hockey because you think your player is above that level, you should really attend that session because you're going to find out a lot about ACHA College Club that you probably didn't know. It will enlighten you. For the majority of people that don't know much about it, it will be very good and enlightening. I hope you join us for that. And then at 8 o'clock, we wrap up with our regular special edition of our Ask Anything, where any questions are open. It's open line Sunday, you might want to say. All right, so let's talk a little bit about prep and youth hockey. I want to start out first by really making sure we've got a firm understanding about the three models that the U.S. works on. There's three development paths in U.S. hockey. And when I say U.S., there is some of it that bleeds over into Canada, but Canada has a little bit of a different model because they've got the major junior component that plays into this. But let's just talk about the U.S. model with the understanding that we're not completely explaining it thoroughly explaining it for all the Canadian markets. A lot of it will bleed over and will make sense, but not all of it. So there are three models. There's three pillars that hockey players advance. From youth hockey, you go into three paths. You go into high school hockey, you go into youth hockey, which is your U15, your U16, your U18 model, and you go into prep school. That's your three models. That's it. Now, here's where it gets complex and here's where it gets interesting. You can play prep and you can play youth. You can play youth and you can play and go to prep. You can be a high school player that plays some youth hockey, and there's a lot of cross variances on this. But you got to keep in mind that high school hockey's here, your youth hockey's here, and your prep model's here. As long as you understand that there's three models and that you're going to ascend up one of those models, the rest of it becomes white noise. It's not really as important until we get it clarified that there's those three models. So what is high school hockey and what does high school hockey mean in the United States? High school hockey is 90% of high school hockey, when we talk about moving up to the next level out of high school, comes from Minnesota. Period. Minnesota's model is built on players moving up and ascending through high school. How do they do it there that's different? Why is it different in Minnesota? Why does it work in Minnesota and doesn't work anywhere else? Well, Minnesota builds their youth model lines on their high school district lines. So your youth model, if I'm playing for this X town's youth program, that's the same group of kids I'm going to play with all the way up through high school. Your travel programs are all built on it. Now, over the last few years, you've seen a couple anomalies where you start seeing some pre-season all-star teams come out of Minnesota. And when I say all-star teams, they're all-star teams that play the youth model for the fall. They'll play 10 or 15 games in the fall. Then they disappear back when Minnesota high school starts. But Minnesota high school is 90% statistically, maybe even 95% statistically, of your players that move on to elite juniors level come out of the Minnesota model. Where else does high school work? There's a small pocket of players that come out of the Michigan area. There's a small pocket out of Minnesota. There's a small pocket that comes out of the Boston market. When I say small, there are a few teams that produce elite players from the high school level there. The rest of high school hockey in the United States is recreational level hockey. Can you play recreational and then leave and then go play juniors? Absolutely. But you're probably going to play at a low-level Tier 3 program if you move on after you play 4 years of high school hockey. So if I'm in New York, and I live in Pittsford, New York, which is Western New York, that's just outside of Rochester. But let's say I'm at one of the Rochester high schools and I play 4 years of high school hockey. Okay, it's not going to be good hockey. It's not elite hockey, even if I'm playing on the best team in town. How do you know this? All you have to do is go to the state championship. Go to the state championship weekend. The pandemic year, a little of an anomaly. Throw that year away. But go to every year after that, or excuse me, prior to that, and go to the state championships. The state championships will have fans from the schools, not fans from whatever town it is. For years, the state of New York held theirs in Utica, and they held them at there's a nice old stadium in Utica, and it's a great place to watch hockey, and they held their state championships there for years. You go to the sign-up sheet and you look for colleges on there. There might be two D3 schools that are there to watch all of the best teams in the state play at the Tier 1 and Tier 2 level play. And that's the way it is in high school hockey in New York, which is pretty much the same way it is in Jersey, the same way it is in Mass, except for a pocket. It's the same way it is in Michigan, except for a pocket. Ohio, you name the states, that's the way it is. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't move on and progress if you're playing high school. Why do you play high school? Why would I play high school? Play high school because it's fun. Play high school because it's free. I get free ice time, free games, free jerseys, and I'm around my teammates. It's a great social experience. There's nothing wrong with it. My family gets to participate. I get the varsity letter. I get to walk around school. I mean something in school versus playing U18 where everybody's like, what do you do? What do you play hockey? Is it field hockey? What do you do? I don't understand. You play for a team. People don't get it if they're not in it, okay? And recognition is important for kids. Self-esteem is important for kids. There's a reason and a place for high school hockey. But if it's elite and moving on to Division I, if it's elite and moving on to Division III hockey, high school hockey is probably not the route. Now, with that said, there's exceptions. There's a lot of kids that'll play 1 year of high school hockey, get it out of their system, and then go back into the model. Just talked last session of the session before today, we talked about Blankenberg, who played for Michigan. He did that. He played a little bit of high school, then he jumped into U18, then he jumped into juniors, and he ended up at the University of Michigan. Great hockey player. That's getting a taste of high school, to get that recognition, to get that varsity load, to get that experience, to feel part of your high school. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's not the path for the majority of the people outside of Minnesota to take. It really isn't. Now, you can argue that there are teams in Michigan that produce players that played 4 years. There's a great player at Army right now that played all of his high school hockey out of Michigan. Bialik, if you don't know him, look him up. He plays for Army right now. Division I hockey player, great kid. Yes, but then he went to juniors and he played Tier 3 juniors. Did a great job of playing Tier 3. Moved up to a NAL team, played a great year of North American Hockey League hockey, then jumped in. He took the risk of leaving high school hockey to have to play Tier 3 first to prove himself to get up to Tier 1. That's an anomaly. That's not the path that I would recommend as being the path that I want to take if I'm going to do it. If I'm going to pre-plan, and a lot of this is about pre-planning. So what is it? Why am I talking about high school first when this is supposed to be about prep? Understanding that there's 3 models of ascension. Which one's best? There is no best, okay? Right now, prep hockey has its function and its place. Youth hockey has its function and its place. And your high school model has its function and its place. Well, where do the youth hockey players go? Where do the Tier 1 Elite, HPHL, AYHL players, where do the Beast players go when they're done playing U16, U18? Well, a lot of them will go play in the USHL. A lot of them will go play in the North American Hockey League or the BCHL. Some of them will actually move over to prep hockey. None of them are going back to high school at that point. If you're on that path and you're at 16 or 18, unless you've just said, hey, look, I'm no longer on a competitive path and I just want to play for fun, you're not going back to high school at that point. And once again, this is the outside the Minnesota model. We're talking about where those players go that are playing Tier 1 Elite that are on that path to play college hockey. The majority of them are going on to play juniors in the top leagues out of those leagues. So if I'm not in those leagues, why play U16, U18? Well, you play U16 or 18 to try to get into those leagues for the elite side. Now, why would I play prep? What is the purpose of prep? Well, first of all, the mind's just like major junior hockey mindset. If I live in the Toronto market or if I live in Ontario, the OJHL is not looked at as like Darth Vader's looked at by when Americans look at the OJHL or the OHL. I'm sorry, major junior hockey. So when you're living in Cincinnati or when you're living in Boston and somebody says, "Do you want to play in the OHL?" You go, "Oh my gosh, why would I do that? Oh, that's." I would be considered pro. I'd lose all my NCAA eligibility. Oh my gosh, that's the dark side. And there really is this mentality that's the dark side. But if I live in Toronto, the perspective is completely different. It's an opportunity, and it's almost an honor to be. It is an honor to be recruited by an OHL team, or to be courted, or to be mentioned in the breath that you're going to be playing at that level. Even though you may not choose to go that route, the mindset's different. So the mindset's different about prep hockey too. If I grew up on the East Coast, if I grew up in Massachusetts, prep school is probably part of my nomenclature. It's probably part of what I discuss and talk about as far as hockey goes, because you're surrounded with players that move from youth to prep all the time. If I live outside of that market, maybe not so much. If I live in the Detroit market, I probably don't have much exposure to the East Coast market of prep hockey, unless my coach for my youth team takes us to the East Coast and we actually tour a school, which does happen. I probably don't have much of a feel for it unless I'm getting recruited by one of those schools. The further you move away from the East Coast, the less you know about prep hockey. Now, we all know about Shattuck St. Mary's. Sidney Crosby went there. That's in Minnesota. You might know about Culver. You might know about some of the schools up in Lake Placid that have prep programs that are outside the norm of what we think about prep. But really the discussion is about East Coast prep. So once again, it's mindset. If I grow up in the East Coast, I understand that market, and I'm probably more at ease with going to a prep school. So what is a prep school? For those that don't understand the concept of prep hockey and what prep school is for all intents and purposes, it's college. It's their campuses are set up like a college campus. Excuse me. The dormitories are set up like college dorms. You are in an advanced academic situation, but you're consumed with your prep school, meaning you live on the campus. You spend all your time on the campus. Now, some campuses are remote where you don't go off the campus. That's it. You're on the campus for the semester. Others are in different areas where you might be able to get out into town a little bit and walk around and participate in non-prep school activities once in a while. But if you're going to play hockey at a prep school, it's a lifestyle change. It's a different mode. Now, a couple things to know about making that choice. If you choose to go to prep school, what are the downsides of prep school? Okay, yes, there are downsides to prep school. One is You could be recruited to a prep school to play hockey and not be on the top team. And you could be recruited to play hockey there and end up being on the second or the third team there and never make the top team. Some call it varsity, some call it team one. Some color code their teams. It depends. It depends on if you're at Shattuck, if you're at Culver, wherever you're at. You might not be on the top team. Some call them their JV team. So that's one. You have to make sure you know what you get into, because once you step over that ledge into the prep world, it's a large commitment financially, family-wise, social-wise, hockey-wise. It's a large commitment, and it's a phenomenal opportunity for some. Number two reason that you what could possibly be a detriment to prep hockey is the cost. It's very expensive, and it is meant to be how do I say this? You have to be able to afford it. There's no other way to put it. Either you can afford prep in that lifestyle. In other words, some people go to prep thinking if they pay for prep school or pay that portion of prep school because they got some help because of hockey, that it's going to eliminate the need to pay for college hockey because they're going to get a scholarship for college hockey. If that's the mindset you have to go to prep school, is, hey, look, yeah, it's going to cost us $20 or $30 grand a year. Excuse me. It's going to cost me $20,000 or $30,000 a year to go to prep school. But once I'm there and he's going to play great at prep school, man, oh man, the scholarship will come and we'll get a D1 commitment and a D1 ride, and we're on Easy Street. If that's the mindset, then I'd say stop right now. Because remember, no Ivy League school gives you money for college. Okay, two schools outside of the Ivy don't give you money. And that's Union, that's RIT. They don't give scholarships. Okay, so take all those schools off your list of scholarship schools. The rest of the schools have 18 scholarships for 28 to 30 players. Some of them guarantee a freshman a full ride right off the bat because he's a highly recruited, coveted player. Other schools are very democratic about it, and if they've got 5 players coming in, they all get a partial scholarship, and the next year they get a little bit more. Some only give 18 scholarships, and the rest of the kids are walk-ons that pay full bore. Most don't do that, though. Most only have a couple pure walk-ons, and everybody else is a gradated level of financial aid. Why is that important to know? It's important to know because if you're thinking that prep school is going to be the answer to get you money at the college level, it's probably not. I'll give you an example. I talked about this the last hour or the hour before. I have a nephew. He's a USHL coach now. Number 1, first overall USHL pick. After 2 years, first year and second year with Little Caesars, his last 2 years at Little Caesars, leading scorer, national champions. First round pick into the USHL. First overall round pick going into the USHL. 6'5", leading scorer coming out of Little Caesars at both 16 and 18s. Did not get a full scholarship his first year into Division I college hockey. So if a guy that's coming out with those credentials, huge, skilled, and got 2 back-to-back national championships under his belt, is not first overall pick, is not moving into a full scholarship right off the bat, what are the odds that most of us, the rest of us, are going to get a full scholarship right as a freshman right off the bat? The odds are slim. So take that off the table for prep. So money, time, family, and overall goals have to be looked at. So what are the positives about prep, and why would I look at prep over U18? And what are the good things? Well, one is if you're being recruited by a prep school, there is money, there is assistance to go to school at prep school, and sometimes it's a lot more lenient than the NCAA rules. So yes, you can get good financial aid packages for school, and yes, it can be a phenomenal situation financially. And if that's the case, that changes the picture. So it can be really good. If you're a recruited player that's going to jump onto their top team right away, there are a ton of players that go 1 year in prep, 1 or 2 years in prep, jump to the BCHL, play 1 year in prep or 1 year in the BCHL, then they're on to Division I schools. If you're in that category where you're going to get 1 or 2 years of prep in and go right to the BCHL or the USHL for one season and go on to NCAA Division I hockey, that's great. It's a wonderful opportunity for you, and to take it. So, what are the reasons why I'd want to stay at 18 over prep? Why would I want to stay at 16 or 18 over prep? Well, one is prep schools, for the most part, are still, even though there's that elite player coming out of there, the prep school market still has a very big market towards players that are heading to D3 hockey. And that's not a slam against any prep schools, but the majority of prep school players are still heading to D3 hockey. And the reason why is because it's catering to that market. It's catering to the Middlebury's. It's catering to the NESCAC schools. It's catering to the East Coast, small elite schools that have hockey. And there's nothing wrong with that. So the majority of your prep is still geared towards a certain style of player that's looking to go to small New England colleges that are high academics and are set up for that. So you're not necessarily always going to be playing great hockey. Now, a lot of the prep hockey is very good hockey. But why would I stay at 18, especially if I'm on the East Coast? Why? Well, it's a different exposure. Prep players, for the most part, don't end up playing in the North American Hockey League. You don't see a lot of prep players move from prep into the North American League. Where do prep players go? The elite prep players, the high-end prep players. It's not quite a 50-50 split, but it's pretty close to a 50-50 split of the elite players that are at that Division I college level of play are going to, not saying they're already committed. Now, the committed players, it's 50-50. They're going USHL or BCHL. But if you're an elite and you're coming out of there and you're not committed yet, you're most likely headed to one of those leagues, not usually headed towards the North American Hockey League. It's just not a league. So since the North American Hockey League is still one of your top producers for Division I talent, if you want to keep that door open, U18 keeps your door open to all of the different leagues. It's the BCHL, the USHL, the North American Hockey League. And you've got more opportunities across the board if you're playing in the right league. So once again, it's usually a financial consideration. The consideration is, hey, if I play, I live in New Jersey or I live in New York or I live in Connecticut, and I've got a choice of playing for my youth team that's going to cost me $10,000 for the season, plus travel, or play prep. For just on an economic scale, if I'm just looking at the economies of scale here, maybe youth looks better at that time. Only if that youth program is playing at the highest levels and can get me exposed to the things I want to get exposed to. So I know that's a pretty simplistic approach to looking at this, but it really isn't that difficult of a decision if you're purely looking at exposure on this, where you want to go. And once again, that reverse engineering conversation we have all the time, it's pretty simple. If I'm on the East Coast, and let's start with the East Coast families first, because I know a lot of you jumped on because you're living in that market and you kind of want to make a decision on this. It's pretty simple to look at this and say, hey, look, we really want our kid to go to school on the East Coast. Okay, if you want to go to school on the East Coast and you want to leave most of your options open, prep may be the best option for you. Okay, knowing this, that you're going to go back to juniors after prep, regardless of the level of prep you played. Rarely, especially if you end up being a Division III player, prep school is not going to let you bypass playing junior hockey. Let me repeat that. Prep school is not going to bypass junior hockey. You're still going to step out of prep school and you're going to go back and you're going to play juniors. Now, you can always give me that one example of Barney that lives down the street that 2 years ago went straight from prep to play Division I or Division III hockey. Okay, yeah. But once again, I'm not building this off of the anomaly. I'm building this off of the norm in the way the trends work statistically. Overwhelming, 99 point whatever percent are going to go the way that I'm mentioning. You're going to end up going back to play juniors. So a couple of things. One is, if I reverse engineer this and I look and I say, hey, look, I want to be an Ivy League player, where do they go? Well, the Ivies do pull out of preps, and they do, the prep schools do have a tendency to send their players to certain places. So if I'm playing prep hockey for a certain school, let me back this up. If I want to go play Ivy and I'm looking at Yale, I can look at Yale and see where Yale gets most of its players, BCHL, USHL players, okay? Then I can go back and look where those players came from before they went to the BCHL and look at the prep schools they played at. It's pretty easy to reverse engineer this and figure it out. It's not that hard. So part of this process is knowing how to just use elite prospects, go through and do your homework and work backwards from it. And it works for D3 schools too, across the board. I'm rambling a little bit because I want to get into questions. I see a ton of questions coming in, but I wanted to knock off a couple of the simplistic things of making sure you understand the three pillars. Now, one thing I didn't explain is, even though there's three pillars of hockey, you got high school, you've got the youth model, U16, U18. A lot of times you'll hear that called the Detroit model, you'll hear that called the Michigan model. And it's not because you can play in Colorado, you can play in Boston and be playing for a U16 AAA team that's on that model. The reason that model is called that is because the market that's the biggest in the United States for pure Tier 1 hockey, 16 and 18 hockey is the Detroit market. That's the market that's got the Bells, the Little Caesars, the CompuWares, the Grizzlies, the Honeybakes, and those programs have been established for years. There's the first program that went out and got major corporate sponsorship, name branding their teams to corporate sponsorship, and is the first one that actually built these models that got kids into elite hockey and bypassed the prep model. And this is going back to 20, 30, 40 years, where it used to be a lot of D1 hockey, especially East Coast hockey, all came through prep. All the players that went Ivy, all the players that were playing on the East Coast, all were prep players, and you didn't get that same level of junior exposure early on in the game. Well, the Michigan market helped open up and expose a different model, which was, hey, we can play competitive hockey too. And over the years, it's evolved into what it is now, which is the Tier 1 Elite, the Beast, the Elite, the HPHL, all the different teams in different leagues there. So let's jump on and let's see what we got going here. And if I look a little disheveled, that's because I'm in hour 3 of hour 6 of this. So let me get on to the comments and see what I got going here for comments and say hello to some of the people. Wisconsin is producing some good players out of high school. Absolutely. There's nothing that I would argue with that comment. You're absolutely right. In fact, you look at what's on Wisconsin's roster right now. The top player on the Wisconsin team came out of Wisconsin high school, but he also went to the national training program after he played some Wisconsin high school hockey. Chris is on from Muskegon, Michigan, getting close to the God's country in Muskegon there. Thanks, Coach. I moved away from Western New York to South America. Wow. To help raise the level of hockey down here. It's a long ways away, but it's growing. Matthew, that's awesome. I'd love to hear more about South America and hockey. I can tell you that this next guy here, Michael Hernbrock, Coach Hernbrock, is a ACHA coach. I'm hoping, Mike, that you stick around and are available for some comments on the next session or at 7 o'clock tonight when we get on the ACHA discussion. Michael has been an ACHA coach and has been a integral part about that. But more so, Mike has been a lifelong friend of mine, a former teammate. We both played on the All-Marine Corps hockey team. Mike will tell you a story that I ruined his career, and it might be rightfully so. I may have broken his ribs in a practice at a very crucial time in the recruiting cycle that sent his career away from the NHL into different levels. But one of the greatest hockey players I ever played with was Mike Hernbrock, and he goes by Michael now that he's an adult. And I'm glad he's on, and I'm glad he's here for comments. So, Mike, I hope you throw some good comments up if you see something. And keep me honest, Michael, if you see something I'm not saying or needs to be said, make sure you jump on and say it. What about the scenario where you plan to still do juniors after prep? Is there a viable option? Juniors is always a viable option after prep. Remember, if I'm choosing prep, I want to be at prep because I want to be at prep regardless of hockey. Prep school is going to prepare you in so many ways that are going to help you be a great junior player and a great a great college student, a student athlete, or just a great student in college. Why? Well, independence, autonomy, self-motivation. There's so many things that come along with prep school that are going to help with juniors. Why? Because you get thrown in with a junior family to billet. You still gotta take college classes when you're billeting, but now you've got to be independent. You've got your room at a stranger's house. Well, if you've been in prep school for a couple of years, that living somewhere in an odd situation isn't so odd for you. You're used to it a little bit. You've got a little bit more feel. You've got the ability to go study on your own. You've got the ability to do so many things because of what's been instilled in a good prep program. But as far as juniors, Kelly, maybe you want to explain a little bit more as we go along, a little bit more on what you mean is there a viable option. Juniors is always an option coming out of prep. Even Tier 3 juniors is an option out of prep. And prep, what's nice about prep is a lot of times because you come out of there and a lot of the prep schools, their programs have been coaching for a long time. There's some really good prep school coaches. And they've been around it for so long that if you've played for a guy, there are going to be people that will take a flyer on even seeing you play a lot or doing a lot of homework on you because of where you played. In other words, I'll give you a perfect example. When I owned a junior team, if you played at Shattuck or you played at Culver and you wanted to play in our program, unless you were an axe murderer, you had a roster spot. Why? Why would I do that? And I did that with my 18s and both of my junior teams. Because for me, if I've got a Shattuck person or a Culver person or a Taft person on my roster, I'm using another big name. If I've got them on my roster, that's only going to help me recruit other players. Hey, I've got that school that Sidney Crosby went to. That I think it's Shattuck St. Mary's. Yeah. Oh yeah, we got guys from Shattuck on our team too. Oh really? So the opportunities, if you pick a good school for academics and hockey with a good reputation, absolutely is going to open doors for you, even if you're an average player on that roster. You don't have to be a superstar. It's going to help you. It's absolutely going to help you, not only academically and as a person, but it's going to help you with your hockey career. I'm a firm believer in that. I did not attend prep schools growing up, but I recruited a ton of prep players over the years, and we've had tons of prep players on our rosters. And a lot of the guys that have worked for me or have played for me have gone through the prep route, and we've recruited hundreds and hundreds of prep players over the years. So I do know that it does make a difference on the rosters. Now, most college coaches or junior coaches aren't going to be as blunt and honest about it that, hey, look, but I'm honest. It helped my roster to have a prep player from a prestigious prep program on my roster, regardless of how good he was. We talk about politics in hockey. Maybe that's not quite politics, but it's giving you a little bit of insight on how it does help you. Where you came from and who you played for does make a difference. So I think I answered your second part of your question. Does that influence how you need to gain exposure? Absolutely does. Absolutely does. So it helps you in certain markets to play for the right program. Here's a question coming in from a Facebook user. It says, why at the 18 level is the NAPHL not considered in the top Tier 1 leagues? Well, it is and it isn't. It's relative to the amount of production that they have. And once again, one man's waste is another man's treasure. Some people might look at that league and say, no, it's not for me. And other people are aspiring to play in the NAPHL and find it to be very successful and very, very fruitful for where they're trying to get in hockey. The NAPHL has less players that ascend to the USHL and less players that make it to the BCHL and less players that make it to the North American Hockey League, although they have more players than the BCHL and the USHL that get to the North American League because they've got an affiliation there. But to say that the NAPHL is at the same level, of course there's players that are just as good as the Tier 1 elite players that play in the NAPHL. Statistically, just look at where the production is and where those players ascend to, and it's pretty clear where your top leagues are at. A couple of years ago, the Beast didn't exist. A couple of years ago, the first year the Beast was up, people were like, the Beast, what the heck is that? Who would want to play it? Now it's reputable and has an actual track record of placing quality players. First of all, being very competitive and placing quality players. But there's anomalies. There are teams inside the NAPHL that are great teams this year. But the consistency and the depth of the league compared to the Tier 1 Elite or the HPHL or the Beast, it's just not the same consistency. But it's still a good league. And once again, it's all on perspective. If I can't play in the Tier 1 Elite League and I'm not, the Beast is not, team in the Beast is not beating down my door, the North American or the NAPHL League may be my best option. And that means I've got to work harder to play in that league and be great in that league if I want to ascend to the same level that the kids in those other leagues are ascending to. Doesn't mean my options are done. It doesn't mean I can't play anywhere, higher. It just means that, I've really got to work hard. I've really got to, take advantage of everything. And that's where, an NAPHL player that's successful is making sure that he's playing on great showcase teams. He's making sure that he's getting on the best team he can play for in the NAPHL. And he's taking advantage of that opportunity to put up good numbers and to do everything he can to ascend to the next level. It can be done. It can be done. It's just a different path. It's no different than, a guy trying to play pro hockey coming out of the Atlantic League versus a guy coming out of the Big Ten. If I'm coming out of the Big Ten, my chances of playing pro hockey at any level are much greater than a guy coming out of the Atlantic League. That's the way it is. If I'm coming out, I can play this game, across the board, all the different levels of hockey. It just doesn't statistically hold up to the other leagues as far as where their player exposure is to the next level. Still a good league. I don't have anything against that league. And once again, I think it does a good job and it fits a niche that needs to be filled, a niche that needs to be filled in hockey. Let's throw something else up here. Great question, though. Cheryl wants to know, if you have the opportunity to play juniors over prep, would you suggest that path early? Well, once again, if I have an opportunity to play USHL right off the bat without going to prep, and I'm already ascending to that level, which means if I've got an early opportunity into the USHL, my chances of playing Division I college hockey are pretty high. If I've got a chance to play in that league, to me it's a no-brainer. I would do that. Now, once again, you'll see. All you have to do is pull up the USHL, not only their entry draft, but their regular draft too, their futures draft and their regular draft. You'll see prep kids that'll get drafted. It'll get drafted first, second round, third round, that don't go right to the roster. They go to prep hockey first because they go to the main camp for the USHL team. The USHL team says, hey, look, you're not quite ready. You need another year. And they go, hey, look, we know this prep program, or hey, we suggest this program or this program. And they end up going to play a year of prep or maybe 2 years of prep, and then they come back to the USHL. Happens all the time. But, there's too many factors to say it's best to go one direction or another. If I'm an average elite player, when I say average elite player, okay, if I'm in the middle of the road elite, I'm a Tier 1 elite player, what are my options if I'm a Tier 1 elite? I'm not saying I'm playing in the Tier 1 elite, but I'm a Tier 1 player. I'm playing in a league, and I'm in the middle of the pack of elite players. What are my options for juniors? Well, the North American Hockey League doesn't take young players. Statistically, look at, all you have to do is pull up and look at 03s and 04s right now. There's virtually no 03s and 04s playing in the North American Hockey League. Elite prospects, it's easy. Just put it in by the birth year. You can see they're not there. So if you're not going to the USHL and you're not going to the North American Hockey League, it probably means you're not getting an opportunity in the BCHL level if you're that mid-level player. Okay, what's left for you? NCDC? Well, the NCDC is a good league, but it's still primarily a league for Division III players. The majority of the players that play NCDC are going Division III. The anomalies are the Boston Junior Bruins and the Hitmen. But if you look at their rosters, those aren't newly created players. In other words, I don't go to that team and pick up a Division I scholarship for the most part. They do a few a year, but that league is still just barely breaking double digits for putting Division I players out production year over year. Okay, think about that. They're just breaking it for fresh commitments. So if I'm at that level, that means I'm probably looking at Tier 3 junior hockey. If I'm looking at Tier 3 junior hockey versus prep school that, I've got an opportunity to play, maybe prep school is a good option at that point because that gives me, first of all, you can repeat a year, which happens a lot, or you can stay a year longer, which happens a lot. So if you come in young, most likely they're going to ask you to repeat a year. It happens all the time. I go in as a ninth grader. They asked me to do, or 10th grader. They asked me to do my 10th grade year over. Okay, that makes you bigger, stronger, so that when you do get out, you still have the opportunity to go to the North American Hockey League or go to the BCHL or go to a top end Tier 3 program. So I don't know if I skirted that or gave you a really good answer, but that's the best I can do for that one. That was a good question, though. Let's see if I can get a couple more here. I want to make sure that I get done in the next 5 minutes here. I was too late to get my 04 goalie into any of the combines in Michigan, Columbus, and Chicago. What can I do to get my son in front of people that can try to evaluate if he is ready for juniors? Okay, so 04 goalie, just mentioned this across the board, a little bit off topic, but it's a great question. Facebook user, I don't know one of the names, so I'm just going to call you Mr. or Mrs. User. No, I won't. That doesn't sound right. There's a couple things on that. 04. I'm gonna just back up a little bit and give you guys a taste of something, because I've done this before. I've got a little short video out there that's on our Facebook page. This is Elite Prospects. I'm going to go into the North American Hockey League. I'm going to pull up the North American Hockey League here. Oops. Okay, here's my I'm going to have to put my glasses on because I told you, the stress of being behind the mic all day is going straight to my eyes. Okay, so that's not what I want. Let's do this again. I'm going to pull up the North American Hockey League. Okay, there we go. So this is the North American Hockey League. If I scroll down past the standings and I get into the player stats and I hit show more. Now remember folks, I'm on the paid version of Elite Prospects. I forget how much the normal version, the free version does and doesn't do. So what I do, you might not get on the free version, but bear with me. And if you got to, go pay for the version for a month or two. So now let's just go in here and enter. For this year, I'm going to enter 2003. Okay, so this is, I'm going to pull up every 2003 that's playing in the North American Hockey League this year. This will give you an idea as an 04 parent what you can expect for next year's season. So if I pull that up and hit the button, magic happens. Now I've got a list of all the 03s in the league. Oh, look. Of a league of 20, what do they got going this year? 24 teams, because of the condensing. It's mid-20s, okay? Mid-20s. So how many kids is that? That's 24 roster. Let's say they're carrying 30, 600 plus kids. Let's just say 600 plus, and the rosters float at somewhere between. This year they're frozen at 27 or 28 because of the pandemic. They're normally frozen at 25. But you're looking at, teams that have rolled, some of these teams have rolled 35 or 40 players through their roster during the course of the year. Now, if I'm looking at this and I say, of all that whole league, there's only 48 03s total is forwards and D. This is just the forwards and D, because that goalie part I'm going to really open your eyes on. But I want you to look at games played. Now, once we look at games played, of those 48 players, you've got the bottom 18, 17, 18, 19 players have got 9 or less games. That means they've been called up for a game or two. Look at all these players towards the bottom here. I hope you can see my cursor on there. You've got kids with 1 game. So essentially, players that are getting a regular game that have been in the roster that are 03s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We'll even let a kid that's got 17 games on or 20 games under his belt count. 11, 12 kids, 03s that are playing regular shifts. Now, I don't even want to say regular shifts. That means they're in the game. They're dressing for games. 03s in that league, you've only got a handful. Okay, now you want to really get an eye opener. Let's go down and look at goalies. Now, remember, this would be you for next year as an 04. There's a total of 10 03s, which next year would be 10 04s. But look at this. Of those 10, 1, 2, 3, 4 never saw the ice. Okay? That means there's only been 6 goalies, or it even tells you here, less than 10 games. Only 3 goalies that have gotten more than 10 games. And of the ones that are in the less category, you've only got one of those kids that have got 9 games under his belt. So of 03s, which would be next year's 04s, you've only got 4 kids that have seen game time. 4. So the reason I say this is why it's important to have that solid foundation of either choosing a prep program or choosing a strong U18 program to continue to develop, I hate that word, to develop, to get your skills to the next level, to ascend, to get stronger, to get better. Goalies jumping early into the North American Hockey League just don't happen. And forwards, I can't stress enough that if you're an 04 parent right now and you think the North American Hockey League is an option, it's not. It's not. 600 players and only having 40 total with only about 10 kids that have actually played. That means your odds are 1 in 60. That means one kid on every 2 teams is an 04 next year. Will dress regularly for a game. And remember, not all those kids were dressing every game. The league right now is 30 deep into the season, 30 games deep into the season, and some of those kids have only dressed for 20 games. That means they're still bouncing in and out of the roster. That means they're still not solidified. Versus playing a year of prep or playing a year of U18 where I'm locked in and I'm solid. Now, I know part of this isn't always the player's fault that they're jumping too early. They got recruited, they got tendered, and then it just didn't work out. But you got to be really careful if you're young in this league. This is not a league for youth for the most part. This is a league of older players. Now, if I'm getting tendered in the USHL, I'm playing because they only get 1 tender each, and they're giving up a first-round draft pick for that tender. Okay? If I'm getting signed in the BCHL or signed in the USHL to play, I might change that tune a little bit. But now in the North American Hockey League, that's a league that I would say you got to be really careful on as far as your path. Okay, let's see if I can get one more question, and I'm already over time. I'm probably not going to be able to get another question. You can always you can always jump back on. I'm gonna throw this on here. Could you touch on the Beast League versus the USPHL? Yeah, I'll continue over and talk a little bit about that the start of the next hour. Even though we're going to talk girls hockey, we're going to go into the girls hockey session now. Starting now at 6. Is it already 6? Holy smokes! 3 hours down, 3 hours more to go, folks. This marathon is continuing. Thank you so much for jumping on. Thank you so much for being a part of this. I'm going to jump off for those of you that are coming on for the girls session. I'm going to shut down. I'll pop back on in a minute or two. Just got to give me a second to get a little bit of liquid in me and get prepared for this next session. If you have any questions, here's how you get answers. Our discussion group is awesome. Jump on the Junior Hockey Advisor discussion group. Ask your questions. Collectively, the group is so much smarter than I am. Collectively, you've got USHL owners and GMs on there. You've got coaches at all the different levels. You've got NAL GMs on there. You've got BCHL board of director members on there. You've got coaches on there. You've got former NHL players on there. There's so much combined experience on there. That's where you ask your questions. If I can't steer you, I'm just sitting back a lot of times and letting the group steer the discussion because they do such a phenomenal job. Always, when you take advice online, you got to remember you throw the outliers out. When you get an extreme over here, an extreme over there, throw the whack jobs out, look down the middle. You'll usually get your good answers on things when you look for advice. Hopefully this helped. Leave your comments for me. Let me know how we did. If I'm helping you, please. Also, our group, our Facebook group, is different from the discussion. Our Facebook page always can use your help with a follow, with a like, and also our YouTube page. If you want more contact, you can always go to juniorhockeyadvisor.com. I'm Jeff Colson. Thank you so much for coming on. I'll catch you guys in a few minutes coming back for girls hockey. Don't forget, at 7 o'clock, we're going to talk ACHA college club hockey. That's going to be phenomenal. I stress, no matter where you think your kid's going to play, please come and spend some time with us at 7 to talk ACHA college club. You will enjoy it. You will learn something. You'll get some good knowledge on that. And we'll end up the night at 8 o'clock, a special edition of our Ask Me Anything, where you watch me as after having coffee all day long and probably a couple IVs, Uh, Maybe I'll even start a drug habit or a tobacco habit by that point after today. Why did I do this? I don't know, but I'm having a blast. It's a fun thing to do. This is what I love doing. We'll see you, catch you with a girls session coming up right now.